Oh, hey, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of The Higher Estate. My name's Dr. Ira Price. I'm going to moderate. I don't know how many episodes we're going to have, but we're going to hopefully go until we can't go anymore. It's going to be really a lot of fun. My goal is to bridge the gap between medicine and the lifestyle world in what I'm calling mindful consumption. And we're going to have different guests on probably weekly is the goal, right? And we're going to talk about all things cannabis, everywhere from business to politics, hopefully not too much politics, to the science of cannabis. And we're going to spread truth and we're going to spread light. That's our goal. And we're going to build community. And I've got two amazing, awesome canna warriors here today. And leaders in the cannabis industry in North America, and both of whom are amazing women, both of whom I've known for a really long time. Actually, one I went to high school with,
sure did.
Abby.
Hi, how you doing?
And one who got me pretty much into the cannabis industry.
me!
When I first started with Amy 10 years ago, I think. We started in a little house. No, it wasn't a little house. It was a nice house. And I made, what was it? I remember I got a phone call saying, hey, do you want to work in the cannabis industry? No, do you know of a psychiatrist who will prescribe medical cannabis? I said, hold on a second, medical cannabis? We went to high school together.
Yeah,
we knew a lot about cannabis.
You sure did.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm done medicine now, so why don't I start? That being said, I didn't know very much about it at the time. We're going back about a decade, so there was really no physicians in the country doing it. There was some research happening, but that was about it. So I had them set up I was like, I'll do it, but I need a seminar. And the only way I'm going to do it, and there was nobody to turn to say, hey, where's the education? You're doing education, right? You got the ganja education.
But we've been doing it for 20 years almost.
Oh, you have been?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I didn't know.
Not about medical, just about ganja.
Well, it was pure, but there was the same idea. I needed to know about patients. I needed to know. I really didn't know much aside from high school.
Yeah.
Right. So I didn't know that. Fine, I feel bad. Moving on. Sorry. so I sat them all in. Yeah, you started this, man. We're gonna I'm super
roll
excited.
Back in time
we're gonna
soon.
roll back. So I started off by bringing a whole bunch of people into a room, into a house. And you were baking. Man, there's stories.
We baked together.
I can't even tell you what happened that night with Naz. But it was awesome. So let's get started. I really want to know about you guys and about where we started. The goal of today is to talk about where we were. By the way, and if you're American, I say about a lot. I tell all my American friends, hey, so soon it's going to sound like a boot, but we'll start off with about anyway. All right, so we're going to talk about trends. I want to talk about trends for 2018, but I also want to talk about where we were. And even just a decade ago or 2 decades ago when you were in it, and you're both probably in it. And I wasn't, not from a medical perspective anyways. And we could talk about how far we've come, but how much further we still have to go. But before we get there, I want to know a little bit about you guys, how you got into the industry, why you came to it, who influenced you, and that kind of thing. Who wants to start?
Abby, go ahead.
All right.
Abby, you're
I'm gonna give it a short of the.
Abby's the OG. I feel you should start.
Yeah, Abby is the OG.
Yeah.
You certainly are. That's amazing.
But
I haven't seen you in 25 years.
I know.
It's crazy.
I know. It's totally nuts since we were kids. I remember taking the 7 bus with you down Bathurst Street. That was our thing. Anyways, but beyond that, so I started out always entrepreneurial, always enjoyed cannabis, as you know. As a teenager, I was always sold weed and whatever, pills and things.
I am a doctor.
It was the 90s. It was the 90s.
Oh, God.
It was the 90s.
We're bridging gaps here,
yeah,
people.
exactly. We're pulling it together. But I started out actually as a kid making jewelry and selling it down on Queen Street. And I met Robin, who now runs A Friendly Stranger. I was about 16 at the time. And he taught me about hemp and about pipes and paraphernalia. And he didn't have the Friendly Stranger. He had, same as me, we each had a little booth at Queen and Soho outside of the Black Bull, and he taught me about hemp. I started making hemp jewelry with another lady there, and I started doing that. Then I moved on to selling.
You're still doing that?
Oh, like I have time to make hemp
Right,
jewelry.
that's what I'm saying.
No.
But I don't know. I want some hemp jewelry.
And then time went on, and the city kicked me off the street because I didn't have a vending permit. I ended up going with Bear from Tribe Called Red, funny enough, because I've known him 20-something years too. I ended up going to a Santana concert, and they pulled us aside because they were like, oh, who's this girl with the hair and this big native guy? So, of course, they frisked us. They took all our weed and whatever else away, and I ended up trading a bunch of jewelry for a bunch of cannabis and for some acid. And anyways,
amazing.
Amazing.
Massive.
I'm gonna make this short.
We're gonna make this short. Yeah, we will.
And then time went on. I went to art school. I went to small business school. I learned how to properly run a business. And when I graduated, I was like, well, I'm going to do what I love. What do I love? I love cannabis. So I opened up a head shop. At the time, there was only THC and Friendly Stranger.
Right.
They're both really new. It was 2000. So the industry, quote unquote, was only like 2 years old, essentially.
You also opened up like one of the first vape lounges.
I opened up the first vape
Yeah.
lounge.
Yeah.
First.
Right?
Yeah. So I was open for 3 years as just a head shop. We just sold bongs and pipes and whatever else not. Pretty classic. It had its own atmosphere. And then in 2003, I got the opportunity to take over the whole building that I was in. And I was like, damn, I can't open more. Like, I don't have enough
Can
money
I get
to
this
fill it
whole
up.
building, please, if
Yeah.
you're listening? Because we can use it.
Yeah, for
And then we
sure.
wouldn't have to worry so much about dancing.
Yeah, it's true.
Just wait. Oh, I put that out there. I put that out there because wait till that music starts
Oh my
pounding.
God.
Sorry.
Well, at least they're getting fit.
Right.
And then I had just come back from Jamaica the first time I ever went there, and people were just like smoking ganja everywhere. I was like, this place is incredible. And then I went to Vancouver, and I went to Blunt Brothers, which is the original, actually, and before they had burnt down. And I was like, this is amazing. Why aren't we doing this in Toronto? And I came back to Toronto, and I opened up my own style of vape lounge. No vaporizers at the time. 2003, and
There was no vaporizers really until like 5 years ago. No, like maybe 10.
We started using vaporizers we were the first to incorporate it. I think it was 2005, 2006.
Yeah, it wasn't.
And we had
it was
made
very
the
short.
switch completely from smoking indoor to vaporizing indoor.
Yeah.
We were one of the first places that did that. And anyway, so I've had my lounge and my shop since 2000, so 18 years, and I've done like a million other insane things in between because I'm just like entrepreneurship
You're
is in my
super
blood, and I
OG,
just
like that was your thing. You start. I mean, I wasn't. I remember doing like. I mean, I went through high school.
Yeah.
We went through high school. I spent, I think, my entire 20s though in school. So it was. I was. Well, shoot. I went to university for 13 years. So I like missed all that.
Yeah.
And then came back, and it wasn't until 2010. And I want to talk to you about what your thoughts are on how we're going to bridge that gap. When you came from, purely rec world. And you came from both angles, really, because you were you had, I mean, I'm not going to talk for you, but you had something like, you were in the world and then had something happen. I don't know, maybe not.
Okay.
Whatever. I don't know what we're going to talk about. You talk about it.
All right. Well, first off,
like,
I love hearing Abby talk.
I do too.
I love listening to you talk because you were the first.
There was
and
nobody
you are
before
such
you.
Yeah, and the fact that you're a woman just makes it even better.
Okay, first of all, this
But let's
whole
get back to
industry.
this.
Hold on. The industry is being led by women.
I know.
It's amazing.
Okay, good. Bring it up.
But
bring it
that's
up.
for sure. I mean, in my mind, I think that's one of the
It
greatest
used to be
things
male-dominated,
about the
though.
cannabis industry. Well, it's 2018
We're
now.
killing it now.
It's still male dominated.
Yeah,
Is
but
it
the
though?
women are
Very much
starting.
so.
Yeah, it is, but the women
come to
are making
California,
their
you
mark.
come to
It
the
depends.
US too.
It depends on which part of the quote unquote industry
Very
you're
true.
looking at.
Okay.
Right? Like if you go to the green market, for example, almost every manufacturer at the green market is a woman. It's all bakers, people who make topicals. That part of the industry, the gray market industry, that's not going to be included, is all run by women.
Right.
Very true.
Big business.
Well, it's the retailing and the sort of like cottage life making of cannabis, right? Creating it into products and innovating it is mostly led by women, whereas like the business part is being overtaken
face,
by
yeah.
men, right? It's like
The big business.
part. Yeah.
It's a Canadian thing. This big at least that I find.
Yeah.
At least
I
I
found
find
it easier when I was the only one.
Yeah.
And
I said the same thing
way.
when I was doing medicine. I thought it was easier when everybody from Canada came in. Yeah,
Exactly.
And you train
too,
and
by the
educate the
way.
rest of the industry, and then everybody's So
Exactly.
at least, hey, you
Yeah.
don't have a movement until you have two.
Yeah,
right.
it's
If you're
true.
the only one standing out there, and I don't know how you felt, I'm sure you all felt the same way.
Yeah.
I want to hear your stuff because I know how you felt too. But I definitely know that when I started, even in medicine, standing out there alone, it's not a fun place to stand when you're alone.
Yeah,
And so now we have a movement. The problem is that now you have a movement.
And you were also kind of, I remember watching the TV and
Oh,
being
I
like,
was
is that
taken-
Ira? But
yeah.
you were scapegoated
Yeah, I
and
was
villainized
totally-
on
Oh, yeah.
TV
100%.
horribly because nobody was.
There was nobody else.
There was nobody speaking to the medical side. It was after the Terry Parker case.
That's
and,
right.
And there was nobody doing it.
No.
Like when I started, there was no medical anything. There was no medical program, right? So when that all started, you were like vilified as like,
Totally.
look at this guy just giving people prescriptions
Coming
for
out of the
drugs,
hospital with
right?
his
But
lab
that's
I am the devil.
yeah, for sure.
But now it's fully medically accepted.
And that's what I'm
Right?
saying.
crazy.
But when
I know when I started.
we
still,
fought through
people
it,
still
right?
say that though.
That's
Yeah.
16 by 9.
Hey,
That's
are
what
we
it
still
was,
talking
yeah.
about this?
That was the best.
Did we not
I'm
mention that?
sorry.
Jeez, no. But the truth is, I don't run away from that
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's pure canna discrimination.
Yeah,
That's what
absolutely.
was happening. They had no idea what was truth and what wasn't truth. They didn't care. They were just
Yeah.
looking for a story.
of course it's sexy and
It's
cannabis
sexy.
is sexy.
And it was sexy then.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I mean,
And it's
Yeah.
so sexy now, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
cannabis.
look at us all.
like obviously,
Yeah.
what got you?
Well,
going?
I got into cannabis because I got into a car accident. I used cannabis recreationally previous, but I got into medical cannabis because I got into a car accident. I got hooked on painkillers, and I hated my life, so I started using cannabis not recreationally. I started using it as a painkiller, and then got my life back, got completely off the painkillers, and started working at a dispensary. After working at a dispensary for
Which we will not name.
which we will not name.
Maybe.
It was a great, you know what?
It was a good time. You had
honestly,
no
it was
other
a
option,
great
right?
starting point. I didn't have an option. It was a great starting point
We
for
had
me.
to start.
The
Yep.
dispensary I worked at gave me a place to work from and to network and to meet people and to show people how to use medicine properly. And from there, I opened my own dispensary because I wasn't impressed with the dispensary I was working at. I wanted to change some things. I didn't, there's certain things I wasn't okay with. And I opened my own dispensary and I changed those things around.
Can I just interrupt you? Are those handcuffs? Do you have handcuffs next to you?
Okay, so
What are those? Can you just show me those, or we're not showing those? I just want to know what you
they're
have
a
sitting on your chair.
bracelet, but I took them off because
Oh.
they would keep clanging
Okay,
on
I thought you were.
the table.
I'm looking down. I see handcuffs. I'm like, what's happening here? Oh, they are. Oh, they are.
She's
handcuffs.
really a
I was
narc all these
correct.
years. She's
Okay,
really just a
Can I
narc
just? Can we just
undercover.
look at those? She's really into art. Yeah. That's awesome.
My
Sorry,
face
I'm
couldn't
not
be redder.
blushing. Anyway, I
Look how red we
are. It's amazing.
Yeah,
All
so
right,
there are
just saying.
handcuffs, and
Okay, can we go back to your
I
car
wear them as a
accident?
bracelet. Yeah, and I was in a car accident.
Now you wear handcuffs.
No,
mean,
I wear them as a bracelet.
pretty.
They're
Sorry.
really nice bracelets.
No, they are. Okay.
I just want to
I'm
put that
sorry.
out there. It
Yeah.
just happens that you're a perv
We
and
call-
saw handcuffs.
Some people call them handcuffs. Others
Some
call
people
them
call
bracelets.
them bracelets.
Okay.
Connected. Bracelet
right.
squared. Let's
I
get
don't know.
back to the
Let's go
story.
back to the story.
So I wasn't impressed with the dispensary I was working at, so I decided to open my own. We've been open for 3.5 years now. We've won best dispensary from an award ceremony.
Oh, from the one.
Twice.
Right. The award ceremony that you
Yeah.
made fun of that I
I
was
did,
at.
and also one previous, but we didn't show up for that one
Right,
either.
okay.
I did make fun of it.
But you did come to this one.
I did not show up to it.
oh,
I just
really?
won the award.
That was great.
Yeah, it was
I was
awesome.
there.
Well, I wasn't there. We didn't even
But
know we were nominated.
What I did realize,
Straight up. That was weird.
listen, this is, and actually, this one brings me into what I want to talk about. What I did realize from being at the awards, which I think will expand. I think it'll be. I mean, it's a great idea. The concept is excellent. Perhaps I don't know. Do we have awards for other industries? I don't know if we're trying to.
There are some awards for
Are
the
there
industry.
like, hey, who has the best essential oil? I don't know, but I mean, listen, what I'm saying is, I feel like even though we're trying to normalize cannabis, we're still trying to keep it different. That's sort of how I felt about that. But what I did learn from those awards is that the industry is very small. It's still just a budding or flowering industry. You know, even 20 years ago when you were the only person, and even up to 10 years ago, even up to 7 years ago, even up to 2010.
Up to 2015, I'd
Yeah,
say.
2015.
That's like, it was
people-
all quiet. Yeah.
It was right. It was really quiet. And what I realized was, you have you have a whole bunch of like these big suit kind of guys coming down now saying, I want into cannabis.
couple.
Yeah. And you're like, well, I've been doing it for the last 10 years or 20 years. And so what makes you think you're so different than from what we've been doing anyways?
Because they hired a marketer.
Right.
Like, don't you know?
Right. So, well, they did. So marketing is, I think in the last 2 years, the whole cannabis industry has sort of changed. Right. So when I started, even in 2010, trying to spread the knowledge of medicine around cannabis, there was some good research happening out of, Quebec, really it was only out of Quebec. And now we have research all around Canada. It's totally opened the doors. And North America and even in Europe's been doing it forever.
Yeah.
But it's now starting to open. But for you guys, coming from the rec market and coming from the lifestyle market, you must have noticed a huge change, a huge shift in the last, I don't know, you say 2 years. And the truth is it is, because even marketing up to 2 years ago for cannabis, it was horrible. It was like everybody, if you look at every name, it's canna something.
It was easier before 2015 to be a cannabis business.
Yes.
Prior to Trudeau, I had an
Yes.
easier time being a cannabis business under Harper than I
Agreed.
am now.
agree.
I've survived 4 different governments now. Federal, you know what I mean? So I've seen many, all different walk through all different levels of government, and it's easier then than it is now, right? And now it's like,
Why do you think that? I think the same thing. The same thing happened in medicine.
yeah,
Same
absolutely.
thing. I've gone through 4 different changes from, Section 56,
Mm-hmm.
MMAR, MMPR, ACMPR, all were like doable. And now we're dealing with Trudeau, and medicine is pretty much being kicked out
Totally.
as well.
Because of the taxation. That's why.
I mean, that's horrible.
It's
Yeah.
money. We all know the answer.
Well, exactly. And as soon as,
What do you think it was?
What it is that
Or
number
is.
one, well, what it was is Trudeau came in. I remember the night he was elected, and I was
Oh,
I
God.
cried. I was like, this is amazing. I can
Yeah.
finally be legal. It's very exciting, right? And
Great
now
social
they're in the
director.
process of making it legal. So they have to create this air of let's get rid of everyone because everyone's a criminal and only the stuff that we allow isn't criminal, which is bull. But eventually it's going to have to change because everybody's going to have to be legal because that's the only way that it's going to work. There's no sense in making a product legal and not creating a system where the
standardized
where people
system.
can leave their black market lives
Right.
and become a tax-paying citizen. Isn't
Right.
that the idea?
Right.
So eventually,
And creating industry. We're creating jobs. We're creating a huge
Exactly.
world. You're giving an entire, I wouldn't say generation, but it is a generation thing. You're giving a whole generation a place to fit in and a place to feel like they belong and be productive to society.
that's what the three of us are imagining.
but first, they're criminalizing us.
Right.
But in reality, am
I idealistic? Is that what it is?
No,
bit.
because we want that. We're looking at Colorado, we're looking at California, we're looking at all these markets that are opening up, and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing, right? That's not what's going to happen in Canada.
No.
It's not the way they're playing this game. What they want is people to not consume this evil drug that they had to make legal in order to get elected, not to sound, conspiratorial
it's
about
real.
it,
It's
but
okay.
but they're what my worry about it is that they're not going to go far enough, and the innovation side of the industry is all going to drain.
Right.
So all these people now that live in Canada that are growers, bakers, and whatever, and aren't being or lounge owners, right, that aren't being the given the opportunity to join into the framework, are going to drain south, or they're going to drain to Europe. They're going to drain. So
Yeah.
the same way that we had a brain drain in the 90s where everyone would graduate from Waterloo
Yep.
and go to
out
Silicon
of here,
Valley,
100%.
right? We're going to have a green brain drain, and the government needs to be very careful with their prohibitionist stigma and their mentality of over-regulating this substance, because in reality, what you're doing is you're not giving the next generation a leg up. What you're doing is closing the door to innovation and forcing people to move out of this country to chase a dream and a career and opportunity that the government has locked out of this country. And that's not a good move.
Do you
for
think
any
it's an
government.
Ontario thing, or do you think it's going to be right around? 'Cause
It's all federal law.
It is federal law, but I feel like Ontario has really.
We're really getting hit hard with
It's
the
getting hit
provincial
really hard.
rules, but I mean, as is Quebec.
Every province
right?
is.
Yeah.
There is no
I mean,
Alberta,
Alberta-
kind
Kind
of,
of BC,
but they're all still controlled
very true.
by the liquor boards,
Right.
right? So
Alberta's
no.
not really.
Yeah.
We're all like,
Manitoba, is
kinda,
that a
sorta.
province?
But
I think
someone's gonna-
I'm kidding. I think
and what-
it is. We have 11 provinces too, Taryn. Something like that. I went
Something
to
like
school.
that.
It's like
But
smart in a
Doctor-
fifth grade. I'm just saying.
there's no province that's going to allow it's going to allow a free market, right? And that's just the way it is.
I just
right?
got a thought though. It's totally off topic because
Yeah.
it reminds me when I went into medical school. They told me that I'm going to lose 15% of my IQ.
really.
Yeah. Sorry, that's just totally aside. That's where my
Yeah.
brain went. Anyway, has nothing to do.
50%.
Right.
Okay.
I know we're talking about politics. We're
Yeah.
gonna go back, but I just thought of, am I smarter than a fifth grader? I don't know. Anyway, I know it says MD, but anyway. All right. Sorry, that was just like
That's
totally
okay.
off topic.
That was
But
good.
yeah. So, but I don't know. I feel like they moved in the right direction.
Totally.
And then because we know I'm looking at it from a medical perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I look at it from a harm reduction perspective. And also as an emergency doc, what I see coming into the emerge, which is why I got into the world of cannabis to begin with, is because I was tired of seeing, and back in 2010, when we were just starting an opioid crisis, I was seeing patients coming in, overdose, dying, and it was just maybe once a week. Even now, I see 3 a shift.
Easy,
I worked
yeah.
Christmas night, and I pronounced 3 people dead
That's awful.
from an opioid-related overdose. And we see it every single day. I mean, Hamilton in general, where we are, hi guys, has a very has a large problem. Ontario has probably the largest problem in the world for opioid abuse. And so something needed to be done. And we know wherever laws are more lax around cannabis, there are less opioid deaths. We know that. And so I feel like the government is struggling. They're so caught on this idea of safety, like somehow cannabis is killing people.
Protect the children.
Yeah, like I don't know. I haven't seen a direct related cannabis death. I've treated thousands of patients,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying it doesn't come without its harms,
Yeah.
because every substance does, and whether it's a medication, a herb, a drug, whatever you want to call cannabis, it has a side effect profile that we need to be aware of, because it's not for everybody. But at the end of the day, when I see 500,000 people dying yearly of tobacco and 300,000 dying of opioids and 0 dying from cannabis directly, we have like, we're talking apples and oranges here. So that's where I come from that perspective. But then what I see from the medical side is I see this taxation thing come out.
Yeah,
And I mean, I've been speaking out against it. Doesn't make sense. And the government for some reason believes that as a physician, we're not doing our jobs, and everybody that's coming to the medical world is faking it. And this is literally their response.
Trudeau said that.
Yeah,
Trudeau
Trudeau
he
said
it to me,
that.
but they also said it to me in email.
Yeah.
When I asked, I sent, I don't know who the MPP, first I sent it to the government, and I don't know, I did this interview, and then I sent this whole letter. They
Yeah.
responded saying it's all about safety, and we believe that
all
adding
about
this
safety.
taxation is going to somehow, even though those
It makes
stocks
it
went up
safer
very
that
well.
way.
But what kills me is that when it comes to safer consumption, so now every province almost is
Yeah. It's
every
not beer, by the way, it's
province-
kombucha.
It's alive.
It's alive.
It's alive.
It smells alive.
Totally, it tastes alive too. But
Like I'm doing an ad for
Great.
nobody. All right, yeah, sorry.
Kombucha.
Kombucha.
what's killing me is that they're forcing everybody, number
drink
one,
it,
to consume only in your house. So you won't be allowed to be
Again.
outside. You won't be allowed to go to a lounge. You can only consume in your house. So if you have children, your neighbors have children. If you have somebody with respiratory issues,
still
absolutely
100%.
stigmatized. You're forced to smoke in your
Well,
house.
this is a big problem.
Public health and safety.
Right.
I mean, point number 2.
Okay.
I'm going to finish
I'm gonna
this.
write down my
Write
damn
those
point
down
here.
because when you write your next doctor letter, you need to say
Right,
this.
yeah.
Okay. Point number 2, right? So you have to smoke at home. Number 2 is you have to smoke. So they've included vaporization into the smoke-free acts of almost every province, including federal. That was in order to combat the rise of e-cigarettes,
Right.
but they made cannabis vaporization included in that. So you've just killed off one much safer consumption method.
Absolutely.
Number 2, they aren't legalizing edibles, right? So that's
year,
in a
they
year.
say.
And not
Yeah.
everybody
And who
can
knows
have
what's gonna happen in a year?
with
There's a new government.
Right?
Oh,
Exactly.
exactly.
Who knows? So edibles are out of the
do?
question. Then you've taken away
Wow, the
the
whole
third
thing
thing is that
makes me
you've
sick.
taken away the education component, right? So when people come to my lounge, we don't allow combustion inside. It has to be vaporization inside. Woo! Anyways, and then we have a patio outside. People can smoke. And anyways, the point is, so I won't be allowed to exist. My staff will not be able to show or explain to you how to use a vaporizer. They won't be able to explain to you about cannabis, whatever else.
That's why I'm
Not
going to come
lounges
to the back
are
because I'm going to do it.
yeah, exactly.
In there.
But we're the front lines, right?
Yeah.
It's like head shops and lounges are the front
100%.
line. Do you think
make any
that when you go to the CCBO or whatever they're calling it, any of those people will care about how you're
No.
consuming your cannabis? You're going to hit an iPad and then you're going to get whatever from something that you don't know what it is.
I'm
because
trying to
you're- and-
create a standardization for those bud tenders through
Yeah.
an educational program, but that's the educational program that I put together. But who knows? Like, it's all because for them it's taxation, right? It's
That's what
it's
I'm
dollars
saying.
and
When you
cents.
go to the LCBO, does anybody explain to you about the harms of binge drinking?
Right. No. Right. Great point.
Very
no.
good.
No.
No, they're like, here's your whole basket
Yeah,
of
exactly.
booze.
Texas
Oh, this
Mickey
is on
for you.
sale,
Yeah.
2
That's a
for
really
1,
good
right?
point. Nobody
Yeah,
does.
nobody
And they
does.
all have their smart serve or whatever
course.
it is to work
And
there, but
nobody
nobody
cares.
talks about it.
Yeah, because
I've
it's a
never-
unionized job.
Right.
Same as, this is another argument that I've always had with politicians is when you walk into a private dispensary, they have something to lose by serving an underage, right? So the same as cigarettes, you
they
lose
get,
your license,
Right, that's
you
right.
lose
They
your
get
business.
fined and they can't serve alcohol for X period of time.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because it's a private thing. But if you walk into the unionized LCBO and you're a kid with a beard and you're like, I got some beer, awesome. And who's going to get fired? Nobody, because that person works for the union. So there's actually a much more security for
Right.
youth, if you're talking public health and safety,
Right.
for the youth in privatized
I'm not
businesses.
really sure what the public safety. Yeah, sure. We want to try to keep it out of. I mean, I'm talking as a doctor here.
Yeah.
The way that addiction presents. I don't like using. I mean, even the word addiction. We use abuse and dependence when we talk about addiction. But the way that it presents, for the most part, when we talk about cannabis, doesn't present like a traditional opioid addiction, which presents like, ooh, I need to fiend for that. I need it. I'll take the heroin over the $100 bill. The cannabis user will all go for the $100 bill. They may take it and buy some cannabis with it, but they're taking the $100 bill.
buy fruit,
But to buy fruit, I bought fruit.
Or cookies.
Sorry, Amy says to me, so we need snacks. I'm like, obviously we need snacks because she smokes like these blunts that anyway. Put Snoop down. She's probably the only person that I know that can put Snoop to sleep. That's a challenge.
I love
Have
it.
you done that?
Well,
Can you?
I don't know if he's passed out. We've been out and about.
And
but-
you're probably the only person in the world that I know that can do that.
Well, I try.
Good. I try. I don't think you have to try.
Actually, I don't try.
No,
I
I know.
just chill. I
You're
just be me.
Yeah. So, but the way that it presents, the way that it that an addiction presents in the cannabis world is the person actually has to. It presents mostly more like an OCD. You have to use you use your cannabis in your same favorite location with your same favorite people, with your own blunt, or using your own bong in that special location, and it becomes
Ritual.
very ritualized.
Yeah.
Well, they're forcing you to do that now. If you're stuck in your house doing that, and you're still stigmatizing the idea of cannabis, and you can't use it outside, then what are we really protecting?
That's what I'm saying.
That's the confusion. Yeah.
It's crazy. You're not protecting anyone by forcing people to smoke with in enclosed places.
Aren't we putting our children at risk? Because I know I don't smoke around my kid, but now I'm being forced to smoke around my kid.
And then
That
the
doesn't make
problem
sense.
that's going to occur that they're going to run into, there's going to be two problems with this law, is that number one, people's secondary personal space is their car. So where are you going to go if you can't be inside?
Right,
You're going to
go to
your
your car.
car.
But you're not.
So, right? Aren't we
Are
trying
we
to
talking about
discourage
experiment
people?
now?
So we're trying to discourage
Right.
people from consuming with their children. We're trying to discourage people from drug driving or whatever they're going to call it. But these are the two things that you're encouraging.
They
And then-
being me.
These are the
The
only
government.
rules that
I'm on the
too.
side of doing the testing for,
Yeah. Yeah.
for I do believe that drug driving is something that we shouldn't
Yeah,
be
we
doing.
shouldn't be doing, but
We
we're
don't-
encouraging
but we're
it, is
right.
what we're
So
saying.
I mean, I hear
With
your
bad
your
laws.
points.
Or
Your
only
points
on
are
one.
really good. I mean, I feel like maybe it's not all that helpful.
No.
At all. Really.
It's the
Well,
worst part of the whole law. It's crazy.
So you're not going to be able to, you can't go to a lounge. So where does that leave us? So if that's the past, we've had lounges, we've had community. Cannabis isn't just about getting high, and it isn't just about medicine. It's about a full community and that full experience and finding a place to fit in for people as well, which makes people happy. We know the number one predictor of suicide or one of them, the largest predictors, is not fitting in and not having a place to go or a place to be with people. And if we're excluding again, if we're still doing the us versus them and the haves versus the have-nots and the legalization versus what's not legal, I mean, what are we accomplishing in Canada by legalizing cannabis?
Great
election
question.
promises.
Is that what we're doing? Because
Yeah,
that's
I always
what's
thought
happening.
we were legalizing cannabis.
Yeah.
That's
and that
what
was
we
a
were
huge
told.
movement.
Apparently.
Yeah, but I thought that was a huge movement forward. But
That's
I'm
where the
hearing
votes
that
came.
I mean, this is super enlightening. Maybe it's not as legal. It's still overly controlled.
Well, think about.
What do you want to see?
Okay.
What would you like to see happen?
What would I like to see?
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to see people such as Abby or myself be able to have businesses in this industry, but the way they're making it, we can't. I mean, Abby, as we said, she is the woman when it comes to vapor lounges. I mean, she's the one who made it happen, and her business, they're basically saying, no, you can't have this anymore.
And-
so then what?
And then other places that have actually come to Toronto, right? So you're looking at Denver. People from Denver came to Toronto. They
Right.
came to the Hot Box. They came to Vapor Central. They looked around. They wrote down everything. And the laws that they're enacting to combat the fact that they didn't have consumption spaces are based off of my rules that I wrote that other lounges use. So they're actually using the Hotbox rules as law, right? So it's crazy to me that I may have to shut down my business after
feel
almost
the
2
same.
decades when I can just literally pack up. I could move to Vegas. I could move to Boston. I can move. There's a whole
Boston is
country out
huge
there.
right now.
There's
Boston
a
is
whole country
just
out
happening.
there.
That's right.
Where the hot box is law. I can go get a license and finally be legal. And it's not like all these businesses haven't gone to governments and asked to be legal. I've been lobbying for over a decade now for all different levels of politicians. Amy's come with me, and I've gone from people from LPs to doctors to police officers escorting me to these meetings, dispensary owners, and we're all we ask for is to be legal and to be licensed, and yet we're all considered criminals. It's a crazy thing.
You know, it's interesting that you say they're using my law. Like I see a lot of weird myself in you from the medical perspective, because I felt the same way when I started until moving into today, saying I've developed all these guidelines for medicine. I've created dosing guidelines.
Yeah.
I've created educational standards. I've helped develop a whole, legitimize cannabis as a medicine because it is, and it's a lot safer than opioids, and it's a great addition to our toolbox. But now you're basically throwing that out the window, and you're saying, well, we know that you did that, but we don't really think it's a medicine.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what we think it is. I don't even. Do
but the
they know
Supreme
what it is?
Court makes us call it a medicine, but we don't really want to.
Right. Yeah. So exactly.
Yeah. The federal
So what do we-
government told us that we have to create a framework, but we don't really want to. So we're
Let's
going to
add
put
an
as
H.
little.
God
as
damn it!
little
You're all
thought
making me
into
sad.
it.
I wanted this to be
Let's add
happy,
an H to
and now you're making me sad, and I don't know what to do anymore. I want to cry and curl up in a little ball and drink my
No.
kombucha.
We've got
and wear her
elections coming up,
handcuffs.
though.
No.
Yeah.
right?
And it's not
Right.
But it's not just about that. Like as cannabis entrepreneurs, we're all really
Right.
innovative.
Yes.
There's a reason that I've lasted as long as I have. There's
Right.
a reason that you've lasted as long
Right.
as you have. It's due to innovation and seeing trends and working within the gray line of the law. So I think for as cannabis business people who have been in this game longer than a year and are all new
And
to
all
this,
think they know everything.
They know
it all.
everything, yeah.
Everybody knows it all. They've been here
The
for a year.
industry.
I am,
Okay,
I
yeah.
created the industry is what they
I'm
say.
the
I'm
plug.
telling you, I was the only person here.
Yeah.
No, I know.
But I think we
Yeah.
will innovate past this, right? So I think there is a
Will we?
future. Yeah,
How?
I know we will.
How? So so what do you want to see happen? And how do we move forward? Specifically Ontario. I mean, it's strange because you go out to BC and you see that the municipality of Vancouver is regulating dispensaries in opposition or defiance to what the federal government is saying.
And Victoria as well.
And Victoria as well. I have, I have a good
Yeah.
friend out there, and he owns a couple dispensaries.
Yeah.
And in Victoria, and yet they still don't know what's happening. Because the municipality's saying go for it and we're going to charge you 30K or whatever it is,
Right.
and you can have your license, but the federal government's saying no. And Ontario, I feel like Ontario's the most conservative. Ontario and Quebec seem to be pretty conservative.
Everything east of Ontario is going to be extremely conservative, and
Yeah.
everything to the west is going to go with BC politics because BC has that's where That's
So
where
what
the
do you want to
cannabis
see
is.
happen? Where do you think we go?
Well, and I would like to see dispensaries regulated here,
Yeah.
much like they are doing there. However, under our current regime, I guess you would call it, we don't have that option. We're going to
You have some really cool people that come into your place.
Thanks.
I mean,
I guess I do.
oh, Jesus.
You're the
Eh?
Toronto dispensary
I guess.
to the stars.
Yeah, she's like the Toronto dispensary to the stars. I mean, so yeah, that's why if you're
It's-
coming into town, you're going there.
It's gonna, it's
Maybe, I
it's. I would expect you to.
But it doesn't really exist.
But we don't exist because we're not allowed to.
Right.
No, it's crazy. The fact that we aren't regulating dispensaries and the fact that we aren't allowing vapor lounges, we are so behind. I'm trying not to swear. I'm used to swearing.
You can
We
swear
are
on this
fucking
shit.
ass
Also.
backwards on
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
Let it
we've
out,
had
woman.
it for 20 years. Abby's been in business, and now
I
we're like,
know.
oh no, you can't have this. Let us figure it out. You can't keep reinventing the wheel. The wheel works. Like let
Right.
the wheel just keep rolling.
Right, you want to
But-
get rid of a black market,
Then allow the people in the black- exactly,
legitimize a
legitimize
market,
them.
and that they've done in pretty much every other country.
Yeah.
But instead, what they've done is they've allowed the top cops who have made their entire livings off of putting people like Abby and I in jail are now licensed producers.
That's
or
why you
parts
I
of-
figured it
Sorry.
out. That's why you carry those damn handcuffs.
I just-
You're just like, screw it.
I'm ready.
There,
I'm ready
I
to
got
go.
it attached.
Just
It's-
in case,
it's
if
the
you want to
Fantino
make
I'm pretty
bracelet.
obsessed with these
Yeah.
things. I feel.
Sorry,
I'm gonna move
I
on
knew
from the
you would
handcuffs.
catch- I tried to sit on.
Right. Oh, even better.
How do you feel about that,
How do you
though?
feel? What?
Like about
But-
Fantino running a clinic, right? Like,
Horrible.
Oh man.
forget about LP. Like,
Right?
he's put himself as like a
Yeah.
Like someone who
facilitator.
cares.
Here's my thought. My thought is, I just did this piece last week for the Globe and Mail. They're looking for connections between LPs and clinics. It's a whole big big to do. And when we sat down, I'm really the only independent clinic left. One of them.
Okay.
She couldn't find another
Yeah.
independent clinic that wasn't owned by a licensed producer or by big industry or big
Yeah.
business. Doesn't have to be an LP, but by big business. And I think at the end of the day, what we have to remember is that we're here for patients and not. There are no costs here at Synergy. There's like in our clinic, you don't have to pay to come. We bill. It took me 4 years when I started. Comes back to the 16:9 stupid
Which
thing.
was
So
so
these
great.
guys literally came. I'm sure you've watched it.
I did.
These guys come down to, and that's when I have my dreads.
You were
Yeah.
such a champ, though. You were such a champ. I
these
want to
guys
point
I was
that
proud,
out.
yeah.
These guys came down and literally like ambushed me at the bottom of one of my clinics in Toronto that I was running. Literally, like imagine like a chase car and
It
they
was
come out
so
there,
crazy.
Dr. Price, you're charging patients to access medicine. Like is really, and what are you doing and all this other stuff
Yeah,
with
yeah,
the
yeah.
film rolling, and I'm like,
yeah.
you didn't ask the right question. The question is, why do you have to charge patients? Why can't you bill OHIP?
Yeah.
in a nice manner, that would have worked. So I had queried OHIP. OHIP told me it's a federal program and you can't bill us. Because when you look at OHIP and you look at any insurance company from each province, just look at it. The way to look at it is look at it like the largest insurance company in the province. That's what it is. It's just a large insurance company, happens to be public. And they decide what's covered or not. The MMAR at the time, and still today, is a federal program. So it's not a provincial program. You don't have to cover it. So OHIP didn't cover it. I had no ability to charge. If I charged OHIP for it, that would have been considered like OHIP fraud, right? So we couldn't. We had to bill patients. So instead of billing them thousands of dollars, I billed them $250 for a whole year and saw them every 3 months. As a physician, that's nothing. And they'd come in every 3 months because we created a standardization. But 16 by 9 didn't care. They didn't ask the right questions. So they were literally there for that. So now when I see things like this happening in the industry where people are coming into the clinical world, and now it's partially my fault. I educated most of the, a lot of the physicians. I spent a lot of my time, which I think is excellent, for the last 8 years, educating physicians to prescribe cannabis or at least have an alternative to their traditional opioid. But now when I see big business coming into this clinic industry, it doesn't fully make sense to me. I understand its need until there's regulation of it. But basically what our government is saying is we don't need it, period. We don't need the medicine, so get rid of it. It doesn't make sense.
No.
If you ask our patients, and we have over 2,500 patients, has cannabis helped you? Well, we have an 89, and we're doing research right now. We have 89% of our patients that have decreased their opioids.
Nice.
Over 60% off of them 100%.
Beautiful.
That's objective evidence. Yeah. That's data. But that's not data they want. They would say there's no evidence for the use of cannabis. I hear that all the time. So come to clinic, ask your patients. And we'll show you there is evidence for it. There's certain look. You're a living example of getting off of opioids altogether.
I was hooked on them, and it sucked. My life sucked.
So it drives me nuts when I see. You want to know? It drives me nuts a little bit when I see people coming into it for the wrong intention. Certainly, everybody is allowed to make a living, and I believe that as humans, I believe we have the right to earn a living. We have a right to a free capital society. I believe in that. I believe in capitalism to a certain extent, as long as it's not harmful or hurting other people, and we all have equal opportunity. And but at the same time, I think we need to keep way I work is patients, product, profit. Keep your patients first, get your product out there, and then your profit will come.
Exactly.
And now it's that whole thing. Once you let big industry in, it switches.
It's profit.
Yeah, I'm not against making profit. I'm against having a good product.
You have to remember too,
and be compassionate.
It's a lot of. We're talking about rec now too, though. So we can't really. One problem I find that I'm having is I'm not confusing, but this is recreational cannabis we're having. We've had medical cannabis forever, so it's rec that's coming. So you can't be like the patient, because the patient's going to the liquor store of cannabis. It's not technically now a patient.
Well, I feel like we've always had recreational cannabis.
100%.
I mean, that's the whole dispensary model, and that's the model that's come up. Like forever, it's been rec. The last 15, 20 years only has been medical cannabis. Now, if you ask
the past couple years have been rec.
Right.
Yes. Well, since Trudeau, I'd say here in Ontario.
How long has Hotbox been around?
The lounge, 15 years.
It's a lounge, not a dispensary.
Okay, I'm sorry.
You know what I mean. We were smoking doobies in the back of the school.
Right.
In the 90s, that was still recreational.
It was recreational. So rec has been around.
Yeah.
The medicine of cannabis is really only in the last 8 years in Canada. Before that, when we were still doing it on very small levels, we barely had any patients. So it's still growing. I just feel like we just don't want to lose perspective. Now with the rec world, this is really why I'm here. I think why we're sitting around this table. How do we bridge the gap
between rec and medical?
How do we bridge the gap between recreation and medical? Because I think if you ask most people why they started using cannabis, it was probably for some medical purpose, or if they just wanted to enjoy it. Listen, the United Nations in 2009 came out with a statement saying 1 in every 43 people on our planet use cannabis to get high.
Yeah, of course.
So
nothing wrong with euphoria.
And there's nothing wrong with
There's nothing wrong with euphoria. If you look at opioids, the first thing it says next to a benefit is euphoria. If you look at cannabis, the first thing it says next to negative side effect is euphoria.
Yeah. Why is that negative?
Why
How
is
does
that?
that equal?
I'm not necessarily certain. I understand that. Now, it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
So, but how do we bridge that gap?
I think
What do we do?
to me, I think there's too much of this like weird animosity between
rec and medical?
Yeah, it's like it's medical.
Hello, I'm
patients,
sitting right here.
Patients take priority,
that makes
and
me
it's
feel
like
good.
to me, I've never asked anybody what they're. I'm not a doctor. It's not my job when you come in to say why are you smoking this cannabis, right? To me, it's like that's not my business. My business is to give you a safe space to come and safely consume your cannabis with maybe a vaporizer or whatever, right? That's my job. My job is not to give you medical advice, though everybody wants me to. It's a weird thing. Anyways,
Well, because in the medical, well, that's what I find different about cannabis than most other
Yeah,
things.
people wanna
But
know.
But I
Yeah.
do think that there is a role in the rec market for that, and that's the mindful consumption. To have an
absolutely.
understanding, like if you're going to go and use something like turmeric, you know that it'll
Yeah.
have its anti-inflammatory properties.
Absolutely.
Or if you use some other essentials,
Of
oils,
course, but we
and
do
stuff.
in our
So why not?
education. We do in our education component. I refuse to give medical
I
advice
don't
because I'm not a
disagree.
doctor.
You're not a doctor.
And
100%.
people come in, they have
Yeah,
real
not- send them to a
cancer
doctor.
and whatever. I'm like, call this
Nothing.
guy, and I've
Right.
given your
Awesome.
name
I
to
love you. Thank you.
hundreds of people. But it's because you're.
Where are they? They
Yeah.
didn't come here.
Oh, they did.
They got
did,
stuck
yeah.
at some other clinic owned by somebody
Don't be
bigger
silly.
than me.
But give me cards. But
cards.
but at the same point, we do sell like CBD teas. We do
Good.
sell like pain creams, like for minor ailments and little things that it will help. Right? We do sell that, and we do give recommendations on sort of like not the medical side, but it's not the rec side. It's people who just have therapeutic,
I would say
right?
Therapeutic. I mean,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
somehow I get a lot of medical. I'm not a doctor, but some people, some
aren't you?
think-
I'm not a doctor.
I'm not a doctor, but being in the medical cannabis industry, people will ask me medical health questions.
Yeah.
I am not a doctor.
Yeah.
Want to clarify?
But I like that. I respect that.
Yeah, so-
that the goal is send them to
to a doctor.
To a doctor.
if they need to.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Of course.
let's give
And
them.
if someone
Peer
and-
tutoring, always,
Right.
and that's important because again, how do you use a vaporizer? Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Let me teach you. It's
Yeah.
very
Right.
important. And in our future, we may not have that, but
Yeah.
right now we still do. But it becomes a
We're still going to be able to vaporize, though, right?
100%. You just can't learn how to use it. Or
Sorry,
you can't, you have to
I
do it
missed
in your
something here.
house.
What?
Vaporizers have been added into the Smoke-Free Ontario Act, which puts them the same as cigarettes.
Yes.
But because you're vaporizing cannabis, it has been added into a different category under Bill 174, which just passed, which is the Ontario Cannabis Act, which actually puts cannabis vaporizers in the same category and worse than cigarettes.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
But you can still use them.
Yeah,
I'm
people see
super
your home.
fucking confused right now.
people don't
Well, screw that, because
understand.
my patients are going to be
174 is
using them, and
crazy.
let
For
the
sure.
government come.
Yeah.
And here's the crazy thing about
I'll explain it
here's
to
the
'em.
crazy thing about politics. Most people don't realize what laws are going through and what they mean and what's included in them. And even worse, politicians don't know what happens. The day that bill passed, I was in Queen's Park, had a meeting. Patrick Brown's people asked me to be on like
I like Patrick Brown.
yeah, I was asked to be on like a policy advisory thing about cannabis for him, right? What he's going to do. And as Queen's Park is passing this, I'm sitting with his policy advisor, and I'm like, well, you realize that this is included? And he's like, no. I'm like, you realize that this just passed. This is what's included. He had no idea. These people, and this is a policy advisor. And then the people, even worse, when I was doing lobbying before this bill for the medical cannabis side, I would go sit down with MPPs and I would say, well, did you read the bill that you just voted second reading? Like, did you even read this? Oh, no, I didn't realize. Oh, but then when I went in for the final vote, they voted for it. Right?
I'm really I'm super confused right now.
Politicians don't know what they're voting for.
They
Well,
just
we get
vote with
that.
what
I
their
just-
enemies vote
Hold on, but I
for.
just learned
You learned it.
You learned it something.
I learned if I was in Britain. I learned here.
Yeah.
What I'm super confused. I'm like,
So they're saying vaporizing is worse than cigarettes.
No, I know
You
what they're
shouldn't be doing
saying, but
that.
No, they
are
say
my
all
patients-
cannabis is worse than cigarettes.
100%.
Right. But so my patients are gonna still vape, like they're gonna vaporize. Period. That's
You're
what I'm going
allowed to
do.
vaporize. Like, I'm allowed to go buy a pack of cigarettes and smoke it, but they won't be allowed to vaporize outside.
They can.
won't.
What do you mean? You could smoke outside
But you can
though.
smoke
But you can't consume cannabis
cigarettes
outside.
not cannabis.
What?
You have to do it in your
How
house,
about
remember?
my patients?
Well, they're going to go home.
Medical cannabis is the same as cannabis.
So
Prescribed
hold on a
substance.
second. So my patients have to use their cannabis in their house.
With their children.
Yeah.
With this is
And
makes
when
no
they
sense.
come to my store,
I'm super confused.
and when they come to my
I
store,
did not. Even I didn't realize that.
my staff won't really be allowed to explain to them how a cigarette how a vaporizer
well, they
works.
can come here and I'll explain it.
Yeah,
to them.
for sure. Yeah.
Because they
Isn't
can.
that
they're-
insane?
And we're still
That's
going
not
to
gonna
explain
make
it.
sense.
I'm
Oh, of
just
course
gonna-
you are. I
Of
get
course,
it.
yeah. But
that
legally,
makes no sense
yeah.
to
They
me
want
whatsoever.
them behind, much like they keep cigarettes, hidden.
And the
behind.
problem with this, well, the whole thing is a farce. But the problem with this part of the law is that they essentially took this bill. This bill covered, Bill 174 covered like 15 different things, including something about school buses. I'm not quite sure what school buses have to do with the Cannabis Act, but they just wanted to
'cause
cram
you
it
don't
in.
want
Up in
anybody.
there under
They
the
just
bus.
wanted to cram it in, and not
Yeah,
to be
that's
gross.
crazy.
Not to be gross, but they literally like this was like baby food in a month. Or they just crammed it down its mouth, and it will
Yeah.
just come out the diaper in about 5 minutes.
Right.
That's what this bill is. They were too lazy. Winter break was coming. They needed all this stuff passed because
Right.
the election is starting in like a month,
So-
right? So they need to cram this all in and say, look at what we did. We passed this great law. So drug driving is in there. Consumption is in there.
Yeah, that whole drug driving thing.
driving.
they just-
The
we don't even
Ontario
have
Act,
levels yet.
the LCBO thing. There's like so much stuff. It
So what do
crammed.
we do? How do we move forward? We'll finish
United?
on this, but I know we are united,
Yeah.
and we're trying to create a mindful community of people that have knowledge and want to use it for for enlightenment or to move forward. But if we're stuck, what do? How do we? I mean, I'll tell you what my patients are still. I'm still going to recommend vaporization.
Of course.
Period. And if they're outside, they're outside, and I'll write them all a note,
Yeah.
a doctor's note, that they can vaporize outside because it's safer.
It won't matter. But yeah.
You don't think that'll matter?
Civil
I feel like it. Well, I
disobedience
feel
has
like
always been a thing.
right.
Here's the
but
thing.
It's not even disobedient. It's medicine. It's
Yeah.
like for me, it's a health issue. If we're trying to decrease the harms of opioid addiction and opioid deaths, and we have a safer alternative, what is who like I mean, I read the working groups proposal on cannabis, which wasn't used at all, pretty
Yeah.
much.
No, nobody used
They
anything.
didn't use
Anybody
any
said
of the
anything.
task force information.
No.
No.
They just pushed this stuff through. So
No.
I'm not like I know I'm just going to continue doing what
Here's-
I'm doing. Period.
Here's what people, I
'Cause
think
it's medicine.
higher level people like us, right? There's a lot of government work still
Were you
to be
including
done.
you two? Did you put me
Yeah,
in that?
yeah,
Or-
You could be in
Am I
it.
just like an
Well,
inclusive
we're
group here?
knowledgeable.
Are
We're
we an inclusive
knowledgeable.
group?
We're knowledgeable, intelligent people.
Maybe a
that
doctor,
makes sense.
but
A
I'm a human
doctor.
too.
Yeah. You can be a part of my motley
Can I
crew
get-
of
Right on. Hey, listen, I saw
my
all of this.
quasi lobbyists that I've created. Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
I showed up to a meeting with my city councillor. I brought my friend Lisa, who runs the Green Market. I brought the owner of big LP. I brought my police officer friend Tony in full uniform, and we were like the motley crew of like lounge lovers, right? So, but I always like to, when I go to certain meetings, I always like to bring like a little squad of like people that can
Sure.
that can speak to the same topic but from different angles. And I think right now, like as many deputations as I've given and you've given, and we go to all these things, but I think really one-on-one meetings with higher ups is where it needs to go, because right now is regulation phase, and right now is also
They don't want to meet with me.
but they do but it depends
I don't know.
too.
I feel like I've tried. Maybe I'm not trying
I'll
the right
get- I'll-
channels.
hard enough.
I'll get
me
you
in
in.
there.
I'll get you in.
Just sit me
Yeah,
down.
I'll get
I'm
you
an
in.
evidence-based physician. I believe in
Yeah,
evidence. That's it.
exactly.
I just go by the evidence. The evidence
Yeah.
says don't do it, don't do it.
Yeah.
But if the evidence says do
Just
it,
do it.
we've got to
Exactly.
to be a progressive society. We can't be stuck in 3,500-year-old knowledge.
For the voters, I think we need to be seen as a voting bloc, right? Like the politicians need to see this whole thing with the LCBO, the whole deal is built on the fact that people who belong to the union vote. They
Right.
vote, right? They vote, and everybody wants their vote, right? But there's only 50,000 of them in Ontario. There's how many? 25% of Ontarians that are adult are cannabis consumers,
Well, I can
right?
give you
That's
the-
a lot
I can
more
give you
people.
The specific numbers
What's
from
the numbers?
2015
Yeah,
CADMs.
it's,
Well, yeah, I mean,
it's
tell
about
you
that.
Well, 43% of all Canadians have
Yeah,
tried it.
have
You're about
tried it.
14.5% of Canadians use it on a regular basis.
That's what I'm saying,
That's
right?
a way larger
There's
number.
millions of
Yeah,
people.
millions.
So to me, OPSU versus cannabis consumers, we got Trudeau in.
Right, we
I
certainly
lobbied.
did.
I lobbied in my
Right.
store. I've always been an NDP
Well-
voter, and I lobbied
Okay,
for
we're
him
gonna
because of
see.
this.
I still love you.
I'm not going to get into this. I'm not going to
let's
get
stay
into
away
this.
from
My
other
kid was
politics.
so
Let's talk about
upset.
cannabis. I'm
I'm not gonna go into
the doctor
politics
here,
too
you know.
deep, but
Listen,
we
I don't
need-
think anybody has gotten screwed over
But
more
if
than
we want
have
to
in
change
this.
regulations
Right.
and we want to change policy, we need to get politically involved.
I agree.
We
And
just talk to
cannabis,
people that change these things.
politicians and people who run war rooms don't believe that our consumers want to get up off the couch and put down their honey bear bong from True Romance and go vote. But we
Right.
do get up and
Yeah.
we do vote, right?
Well,
and
we
we
put
do
'em
care
in,
about
certainly,
politics,
right.
right?
Well,
So
I
and
mean-
now it's election time in Ontario. As soon as it's going to be federal election time. So let's have these conversations. And
Yes.
people laughed at me when they're like, "Oh, what do you mean you're going to meet Patrick Brown's people?" I've sat with Patrick Brown.
Sure.
We've talked, right?
Yeah.
It's one of those like they are interested. Some liberals
We
are
should be bringing
interested.
Patrick Brown, and we can do that because we all
Yeah,
have
bring
connections
us
to
together.
that.
Yeah.
guy. Bring him here.
Yeah.
We can have that dinner.
I don't know.
Patrick, we're gonna
I'll
have
organize, yeah. But I'm just saying, there's like
Lauren, call 'em up.
But these people want to get elected,
right.
and they need to make election promises, and we have to prove that we care,
Right.
and that's the bottom line. If we can prove that we're a voting bloc and we matter,
Right.
then the decisions will go our way because that's what
The way
politicians
that I
care
see
about.
it, I mean, if you didn't care, you wouldn't have spent 20 years being arrested and being thrown into the media or been whatever we're doing to try to
Arrests
push
aren't as
this
bad as they sound.
to push this thing forward. So
Yeah.
clearly we care. The question is we have to come together, I guess, as a unified group with a voice. Specifically in Ontario, but also around Canada.
And that's where we
make change.
differ. I mean, as mentioned, we have such an animosity between rec and medical that we have to.
Where's that animosity? Because I mean, I see it from maybe I'm just
know-
different, but I don't hate you.
I don't
Some
hate
days,
you either.
I mean, some days,
You might piss me off a little bit.
right? Some days, I mean, you're super high maintenance.
I am.
You're like
Everyone has.
I
told me
need
You
that.
should have
fruit
seen
and
it at Taco
vegetables
Bell.
and
And
I
Can
need
you
snacks.
replace the meat in my taco
Right.
with
Yeah,
extra
no.
tomato,
Oh,
please?
She's super high maintenance. Yeah,
But,
you're
you know,
like
I am high maintenance.
not high needs, high maintenance. Yeah, no, certainly. Yeah.
What were we talking about
Amazing.
again?
No, where's
We got under my
Chris?
food.
Where's Chris, I think Chris took off, but I mean, what was the first thing you said to Chris? You never called me back.
I did, and I
Oh,
was
hi,
serious
Chris. Nice to
about
see
that.
you. He's gone.
Where is he? Oh, my
He
God, I was
took
dead
off.
serious. I just want to make sure he knew I knew.
Right. No, I think he knew you knew.
Yeah, I just want to make
It's
sure.
like a Friends episode.
Like-
I knows that he knows.
doing that thing.
Right. And you're like, no, that's okay. Oh, I'm glad you apologized to me. That's what you said.
I might have
glad
said
you
something along like
apologized.
like that. It was a very important
So-
charity event.
Yeah, I don't. Was
put
it
that out there.
right? It was an important charity.
was
We're
quite
doing.
important.
We're going to be doing a fuck cancer event through Synergy.
Yeah, I
I'd
love
love you guys to
cancer.
come
I would love
be
to
involved
come.
with that. We're going to probably do it. I think it's maybe February now because like January is man.
Slipping
It just
away.
everything we do just keeps getting pushed because we're trying to do so much for the community. It's just not so simple.
What were we talking about?
I don't know, but I know what we're talking about.
Voting.
We're talking about voting. I think at the end of the day, but I mean, how do we move forward? I think you just brought up an awesome point. I mean, our goal here, my goal is to build community. And I think your goals are pretty much aligned. And maybe we need to build a strong voice, a political voice, not just a community voice. A community voice that has a political agenda. And maybe that's how, and so I haven't been involved in that political arena. I'd love to get involved with that. It sounds like you've been doing it for quite some time.
Yeah,
I come at it from a different perspective.
I work through, we created a group in 2012 called the CFBA. So it's the Cannabis Friendly Business Association. And right now we're actually we joined up with a bunch of other associations to do the Ontario Retail Council. And then Lisa actually hooked up with Dana Larson, and we're bringing what he did in BC, which is Sensible BC. We're bringing it to Ontario in the next month or so. So it's going to be Sensible Ontario. So again, it's data collection, political driven campaigns, whatever else, not all to get Ontarian cannabis consumers involved in voting.
Do you know about all this stuff?
I do. I was talking to her about it.
Okay, so I speak to you all the time. I'm glad you tell me about nothing. I get zero. Oh yeah, I'm just blah 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 blah. I don't know. I'm sitting in my hot box outside. I got some rapper. I don't know. Somebody coming from wherever.
No, the Sensible Ontario. I am so excited about. After looking into that, we need that here.
Yeah.
And Dana did such a phenomenal job there. The fact that Lisa's bringing it here. Lisa's such a powerhouse. So.
Yeah. It's going to be great.
It's good.
For
well,
sure.
so maybe that's maybe one step forward. I mean, that's something that I'm taking out of this is it's time to get political. And for a physician to get politically involved.
Join my motley crew.
Yeah, I feel like that's a good opportunity. I mean, I think we would love to do that.
Yeah.
I think that's a good move forward.
And I think creating good points, good talking points, realistic talking points really matters, right? So all these little things that I talk about, smoking in your car, that's something that my police officer brought to my attention, right? He was the one that in that meeting was like, well, you know what really bugs me? And I'm like, what's that, Tony? And he's like, when I roll up on my bike on people and they're rolling in their car, and I'm like, why are you rolling in your car? And they're like, because I don't have anywhere else to smoke. And he's like, I wish I could just send them to the lounge.
That's right.
And I'm like,
it's a harm prevention.
Yeah.
It's definitely harm reduction.
Exactly.
I mean, we have needle exchanges in Vancouver.
Yeah.
We have needle
here.
We have needle exchanges. And if we believe in harm reduction and we're going as far as saying, and we're giving naloxone kits for overdoses, what's so wrong with the goddamn vapor lounge?
I know.
It doesn't make any sense when you think about it. It's senseless. From a medical perspective, it's fully senseless. Yes, we need to regulate. We need to keep people at a specific age. Fine, I get the whole idea. Makes a lot of sense to me. What I don't understand... Oh, by the way, Chris, we were just talking about you. We totally were. We were just talking about her high maintenance-ness. And anyway.
I'm not high maintenance. I just require things.
Right. Things or thanks?
Things.
Things?
Things.
Spell that word.
T-H-I, like thang. Oh, want to do a ting? T-I-N-G? Toronto?
I don't know what she's saying anymore. Okay, but point being, we need to get involved.
Yes.
Right? And there's a lot of senseless stuff out there. And maybe one of the bridges for this is bringing in do you have a physician in there?
No, you're it.
There
you go.
Yeah.
So we need, let's bridge that gap. Let's bring a physician in. I'm right here.
Oh, look, it's Ira Price.
Oh,
Dr.
what do you
Ira
know?
Price.
Yeah.
Physician extraordinaire.
And we're,
you are, though.
and let's, oh, thank you.
You are, though.
No, you're amazing yourself. Okay, let's just talk about that.
You are great.
So maybe that's what I take out of this is one of the bridges is we come into that community as well.
Exactly.
And we start that dialogue and we get into the political world and start from a medical perspective showing the evidence around the harm reduction.
Yeah.
And that's how we move forward.
And that's what they want. Politicians don't want to think about stuff. They want, this is what the PCs asked us for. They asked us to have a policy paper written out, and that's why I'm working with politicians who are interested, like people who I mentioned before, that, were involved in the writing of these laws originally, get them involved as well. So you pull back the man who wrote the Smoke-Free Ontario Act, and that he disagrees with this, you pull him into the mix, and he can come out, he can do a press conference at Queen's Park, and there's a physician, an activist, and a politician
When do we start?
Sitting together.
When do we start?
I'm already doing it.
When do I start?
Whenever.
I'm
yesterday.
So I'm not a person. I like to talk a lot.
Yeah.
As we know, maybe not as much as Amy, but I like to.
What's my fault? It's on. Watch it.
But I like to do.
Yeah.
I mean, there's I like doo-doo.
Yeah. You like doo doo.
I like the doo-doo.
You like
I'm
doo-doo.
out.
I like it. You said doo-doo. All right, fine. Oh, thank you guys.
Yeah.
This was amazing.
No
I want to
worries.
know how to move forward, and I'm gonna
Just get involved.
I'm
Let's
gonna,
just
well, I
get
want to get
involved. Come to
involved.
Toronto. Let's involve
okay,
you.
I live here.
I know, but you
but
gotta
I
come
can be
here.
involved from here,
Yeah.
and I know other
Definitely.
people that would like to be involved. I'm sure as
Definitely.
well, and hopefully people watching this want to get involved and organized,
Mm-hmm.
and and so like let's just do that.
And for the people at home, write how you feel. Email it and then write it on a piece of paper and stick it in the mail to your MPP. If our voices count, we don't, the regular person doesn't need to necessarily go to Queen's Park once a month, but they can put a letter in the mail. And if it's delivered with mail to Queen's
My
Park,
MPP wrote this ridiculous response to me.
then keep it
But you
and
know
publish
what?
it.
Like,
Right.
yeah.
I think I
And
did
counter
publish.
it.
I did publish
Write
it.
But
It's
see,
on.
me and you are in a position where we can write op-eds.
Right.
We can put posts that will get shared. We can do this.
Right.
And people will listen because we're in public positions, right?
Right.
So it's important that we get other people involved. And if you disagree with what you got, counter it.
Right.
Right.
I did. It was about
Yeah.
the taxation, and which makes no sense in my mind
No, it's nuts,
whatsoever.
yeah.
It totally takes away from our principle of universality in Canada. Everybody has access to healthcare. Well, you don't if you're paying for it. So,
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, this was amazing.
I had a good time.
You could what?
I had a good time.
Oh, I thought you said I could tell. I'm like, yeah, I had a good time. I'd love to have you back again. This was our first episode, and we definitely covered a lot of
Sure
space.
did.
The trend from the community. Let's get politically involved.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that's what
Yeah.
I've taken out of this.
Yeah.
If we want to make a difference, you got to get up off your couch.
Yeah.
Put
Put down the honey bear bomb. Brad
down.
Pitt.
That's it. Put it down.
I don't own a honey bear bomb.
That's it. Well, you should vape any.
We do
have
sell
to
them at the
get
hot
one.
You
box.
should just vape, or you could just if you hook your vape up to your bong, then you're good too. 'cause
Right?
you can do that.
Touche.
You can do that.
It's true. As
Talk
long
to
as
the guys.
peel yourself up
That's
and
it.
vote.
Just get up and vote.
Yeah.
Right. And
In June,
And
yeah.
Get your friends to vote.
and get
Encourage
involved
everyone
in
you
the
know to
community.
vote.
Definitely.
In the community, not just the rec and the medical. Let's bring it together into a mindful.
At this point, it's
Adults
cannabis.
who use cannabis.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be medical or recreational. It's just
mindful.
people-
Cannabis.
mindful.
And it-
Mindful consumption.
I'm gonna add in a point that I'm so proud of the fact that we have managed as a community actually to change the word marijuana into the word cannabis.
100%.
You know what I
True.
mean? That is a huge
I talk
motion
about it all the
forward.
time. Huge.
Huge.
Can't stand marijuana.
Huge. So like if you it's funny. We were I did an interview with the National that should be out next week, and I was explaining to the reporter about that. And she's like, "What do you mean marijuana is not a good word?" So we explained
Right.
it to her, and they
You
did a
lazy
whole
knife wielding.
Yeah, exactly. They did a whole piece about the history of the word
Mexican.
marijuana,
It's horrible.
and now you don't hear
Yeah,
on
you don't
the
hear it.
news.
That's
They
right.
never say it. Now it's only cannabis.
Cannabis.
Politicians use cannabis. Everybody uses that
Huge
word.
movement.
Yeah, love it. So there's something that we as a community did
Yes.
with our voices.
Yeah. That's pretty huge, especially
Massive.
educating
That
the
is
media. on it.
Exactly.
And that's where
Yeah.
we really need to be right now.
Exactly, but
educating
we
the
did
media.
it, right?
Yeah.
So think about the fact that 20 years ago, people were afraid to come into my shop to buy a bong. I was
Right.
afraid to say the word, "This is for your pot." You know what I
Right.
mean? That was 20 years ago. And now today we're discussing whether dispensaries should stay open, whether police officers should own clinics, right?
Right.
So like the fact, like we did this as a community, right?
Huge.
And we made these changes. So don't worry about Kathleen Wynne and her little cronies and what they're planning. That's good for them, but we'll move forward,
Yeah,
and
we will.
in the end, everybody will overcome, right? Yeah.
Thank you,
There's my
guys.
little
Love it.
Martin Luther King
You guys,
Jr.
yeah, I
moment.
love it.
Yeah.
No, I feel the same. That was amazing. You guys are excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming.
Awesome.
And don't forget to check us out. We'll be on Synergy TV. It'll be on YouTube eventually, or on iTunes, because it'll be on both.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to put the podcast out to both, and I'd love to have you guys back. You were amazing. We're going to build
Yeah.
those bridges.
Sure.
And we're going to, we'll survive.
Yeah.
We're going to get through.
It's gonna be
Awesome.
great.
Thank you guys.
Awesome.
Woohoo. Peace.
Good.
Bye, guys.